that doesn't even have an official name, yet millions of people go through it every night. It's when you're lying in bed at 2 a.m., your body completely drained, but your brain is sprinting at full speed. You're about to fall asleep, then boom, a conversation from 6 hours ago suddenly comes back. You replay it over and over. You analyze every word, every tone, then you start beating yourself up. I should have said that instead. And before you even realize it, you've already run through a dozen practice scenarios in your head for situations that will probably never happen. The bitter part is you're aware that you're overthinking. You know it doesn't make sense, but you just can't hit the stop button. It's like your brain has 50 tabs open at once, and every single one is blasting sound at full volume. People look at you and throw out the usual advice, just stop thinking, relax. But the truth is, having a mind without an off switch is both proof of intelligence and a pretty brutal psychological sentence. People who overthink tend to be some of the smartest, most sensitive, and best at reading other people's emotions. But if this really is a gift of intelligence, then why does it drain you so completely? The line between sharp insight and self-destruction is incredibly thin. Today we're going to break down what's actually happening inside an overthinking brain, and how you can take back the steering wheel of your mind. Welcome back, I'm Apex. Let's get started. To solve a problem, you first have to call it by the right name. In psychology, this isn't simply called overthinking. There's a more precise clinical term for it: maladaptive rumination. This is when your mind gets stuck, endlessly chewing over the same old thought patterns, especially when you're dealing with uncertainty, past events you can't change, or complicated social situations. A lot of people, even those around you, might say things like, "You're too sensitive," or "You're overreacting, that's why you worry so much." But science doesn't agree with that kind of shallow judgment. Research from Yale University and the University of Michigan has consistently shown the exact opposite. You don't ruminate because you're weak. In most cases, you do it because your brain has an exceptionally strong ability for pattern recognition. Your nervous system is like a high-tech military radar. It's always scanning, always processing, always searching for hidden meaning beneath the surface of every situation. Your problem has never been a lack of intelligence. The problem is this radar system never gets the signal that says, "All clear, power down." From a neuroscience perspective, the key player here is the prefrontal cortex. Think of it as the powerful CEO in charge of planning and logical thinking. In a typical brain, this CEO hits the brakes to calm down panic signals from the amygdala. But when you're stuck in an overthinking loop, this CEO gets overwhelmed and loses control. Instead of staying in charge, it gets swept away by endless internal chatter from a background system called the default mode network, DMN. This combination creates a mind that's basically always online. You're constantly reviewing everything that already happened, while also drafting responses for conversations that haven't even happened yet. Your brain is like a Ferrari with a powerful V8 engine, but your foot is stuck on the gas while the car is in neutral. The engine is roaring, the wheels are spinning, burning through fuel, but the car doesn't move forward an inch. Your exhaustion comes from the intense pressure of that engine constantly revving. But here's the real question. Why would an intelligent brain put itself into such a draining state? What's both fascinating and a little heartbreaking is this. Psychology has found that this pattern usually doesn't just appear out of nowhere in adulthood. For a large number of overthinkers, this habit was rooted all the way back in childhood or the teenage years. Take a moment and look back. Did you grow up in an environment where outcomes always felt unpredictable? When a child grows up in a home where the moods of adults, parents or caregivers, can shift suddenly without warning, or in a place where even the smallest mistakes lead to outsized consequences or harsh criticism, that child's developing brain learns a very logical survival strategy: anticipate everything. If you could predict your parents' anger just by the sound of their footsteps, if you could spot every possible mistake in your homework to avoid being scolded, if you could read every disapproving look ahead of time, then maybe you could protect yourself. Seen in this light, your overthinking is not a personality flaw at all. It's an adaptation. It's the result of a highly intelligent, sensitive nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do for years: scan for risk in order to keep you safe and alive. Your brain doesn't hate you. It's just trying to protect you, only a little too much. Now, we need to pause for a moment to clear up a very important point. Not all overthinking wears the same outfit. In psychoanalysis and cognitive psychology, excessive thinking is usually split into two completely different states. Figuring out which one you're in is the first key to getting out of the maze. The first state, reflective rumination. This is when your mind turns inward, digging deeper to understand yourself better, process complex emotions, and reshape how you see the world. For example, after an argument with your partner, you sit down and ask yourself, why did I react so strongly back then? What about what they said triggered an old wound in me? How could I communicate better next time? When kept in balance, reflective rumination is actually a superpower. It's the source of high emotional intelligence, sharp self-awareness, and deep empathy. It helps you grow. The second state, brooding rumination. This is the real silent killer that slowly crushes your life. Unlike reflective thinking that moves toward solutions, brooding is completely passive. You get stuck in the problem, drowning yourself in regret and unanswerable questions. You replay the argument hundreds of times, not to learn from it, but just to relive the frustration, or to beat yourself up for not coming up with a cooler comeback. This is where overthinking starts sending you the bill. It makes you pay with your sleep quality. It makes you pay with something called analysis paralysis. When you're standing at a crossroads, overanalyzing every possible risk until you freeze and can't make any decision at all. It makes you pay with social anxiety because you're constantly afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of being judged, afraid of every single look. But here's the most subtle trap. You don't stay in just one state. Most of us swing back and forth between both without even realizing it. A perfectly normal moment of reflection can quietly slide downhill and turn into a spiral of brooding before you even notice. It's so smooth and sneaky that you don't realize you've crossed the line. Why does that happen? Because when you're thinking, it feels like you're doing something productive. Your brain is working at full speed, neurons firing nonstop. In cognitive psychology, this is called the illusion of mental progress. Your mind tricks you into thinking it's solving a hard problem, but in reality, it's just running on a treadmill, burning a ton of energy, sweating like crazy, but not moving forward even a single inch in real life. Let me tell you a neuroscience fact that might give you chills. Do you know why you can't just force yourself to stop thinking? Why every time someone taps your shoulder and throws out the usual advice, hey, just stop thinking about it, relax, it makes you feel so annoyed? It's not because they're wrong, it's because it's unrealistic. The truth is, your brain is being driven by dopamine. Dopamine is usually known as the reward or feel-good chemical. But here's something most people don't realize. Your brain releases small amounts of dopamine during the process of problem solving, even when those problems are completely imagined. So every time you run a scenario in your head, every time you analyze every angle of a possible risk, every time you build a sharp argument to win against your boss in your imagination, your brain is actually rewarding itself. It releases tiny hits of dopamine for the act of thinking itself without caring whether that thinking leads to any real-world result. As long as you're thinking, your brain feels good. This mechanism turns overthinking into an addiction loop, not much different from mindlessly scrolling on social media. The more you think, the more you get paid with these chemical rewards, and the more you feel the need to keep thinking to maintain that false sense of safety. That's why trying to use willpower to order yourself to stop thinking is, scientifically speaking, completely unrealistic. You can't fight a system that has such a strong chemical drive to keep the habit going. So how do we break out of this prison? Trying to force someone who's overthinking to stop thinking is like telling someone with motion sickness to just stop feeling nauseous. It doesn't work. Top therapists around the world, when working with people who struggle with chronic overthinking, don't waste time trying to shut down their thoughts. The real goal of therapy is to help you change your relationship with those thoughts. To do that, I want you to start practicing two core techniques drawn from acceptance and commitment therapy and somatic experiencing. Tip number 1, cognitive diffusion. Imagine your anxious thoughts as a pair of virtual reality goggles pressed tightly against your eyes. When you're wearing them, you believe the disaster playing inside is real. You become fused with your thoughts. Cognitive diffusion is the act of taking those goggles off, holding them in your hands, and realizing, oh, this is just a video playing, not my real life. In practice, it's about adjusting your inner language. Instead of getting pulled into a label like, I'm a total failure, take a step back, create a little mental space, and say to yourself, I'm having the thought that I'm a failure. Do you see the huge difference? When you add the phrase, "I'm having the thought," you instantly separate yourself from that toxic stream of thinking. You take away its absolute power. You're no longer a victim being swept away by the current. You've stepped onto the shore, watching the current flow. This small shift helps move blood flow and neural activity away from the amygdala, the center of panic and emotional reactivity, and back to the prefrontal cortex, the center of logic and awareness. You're letting your brain understand this is just raw data being processed, not a life sentence for who you are. Tip number 2, update the safety signal for your central nervous system. At its core, overthinking happens because your nervous system is still running on old survival software from the past, always assuming the world around you is full of danger. That's why you can't use logical thinking to convince it to relax. You have to use the language of the body to retrain it. When your mind starts racing, when your heart beats faster and you feel yourself getting pulled into an endless loop of anxiety, you need to immediately cut the stream with real sensory experiences. Pull your mind out of the future and drop it straight back into the present. You can use the well-known 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. Pause and find 5 things you can see right now, 4 things you can touch, feel the texture of the table, the softness of your clothes, 3 sounds you can hear, a fan, birds chirping, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Or go more direct and intense. Splash your face with ice-cold water, or lift something heavy at the gym. Why does this work? Because your brain's default mode network, DMN, can't do 2 things at once. When you force it to focus on strong physical signals from the real world, it has to pause the imaginary conversations it's been creating. This is how you gently take your mind by the hand, lead it out of that dark movie theater, and show it the sunlight again. You're sending a clear biological message. Look, the environment is different now. There's no predator chasing us. You're grown, you can protect yourself, and now it's safe enough to rest. When you put all these psychological pieces together, there's a much bigger message here than just a few personal tips that I want you to remember. Overthinking is not a personality flaw. It's not a shameful condition. It's not proof that you're weak, unstable, or losing it. At its deepest core, it's evidence of a mind with extremely high processing power. A mind that had to learn how to stay highly alert and aware in a world that once felt unpredictable. It's proof of how hard you've worked to survive. Your real challenge in life isn't to completely eliminate those thoughts or to shut down your natural sensitivity and sharpness. The real challenge is to learn how to become a patient, caring guide for your own brain. You need to teach that anxious mind that the days of constant danger are over, and that peace is something you truly deserve, without needing to stay on guard all the time. And maybe the most human part of all this is that every one of us carries cognitive patterns and emotional scars shaped by experiences we never chose. We didn't choose to be hurt. We didn't choose to feel anxious. Understanding how your brain works isn't a magic wand that makes every problem disappear overnight. But it does take away the absolute power those dark thoughts seem to have over you. Once you can name the problem, it's no longer your master. And sometimes simply understanding yourself at that level is already the most powerful starting point for real healing. So after breaking down all these hidden psychological patterns, where do you find yourself most often? Do you lean more toward constructive reflection, or do you get pulled into negative brooding? Are you ready to try separating yourself from your thoughts using the diffusion technique? Feel free to share your story and your perspective in the comments. I'm here to read and understand with you. If today's video helped you let go of even a small part of that invisible weight, or gave you a more compassionate view of yourself, go ahead and hit like and share it with your friends or coworkers who you know are also quietly fighting battles in their own minds every night. Your small act of sharing today might be the lifeline someone else needs at just the right moment. I am Apex. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so we can keep exploring the darker but fascinating corners of psychology together. Thank you for spending your valuable time all the way to the very end. Live fully in the present, and goodbye for now. See you in the next video.